1600 years ago, the monarch of the neighboring country was arrogant, extravagant, dissipated, and indifferent to state affairs. The marshal planned to lead his troops to attack him. After reporting to the emperor, he set out immediately. The ministers all thought that the roads there were treacherous and the distance was far. The marshal had few soldiers but was going deep into the dangerous situation, so they were all very worried. Only the prime minister believed that the marshal would surely win. When someone asked him the reason, the prime minister said, "I made the speculation from gambling. The marshal is an excellent gambler. He will never place a bet if he is not sure of winning. What I'm worried about is that after the marshal wins the battle, his power will become too strong." In the story, the prime minister's judgment of the marshal reflects the value of having a profound insight into human nature. The prime minister knew very well that the marshal was an ambitious person who was good at weighing the pros and cons. Just as he inferred from the fact that the marshal was good at gambling that the marshal's expedition must be something he would do only when he was fully confident of success. This shows that understanding a person's character, working style, and other characteristics of human nature can help us predict their behaviors and decisions. For example, in real life, in business negotiations or team collaborations, by understanding the character of partners or opponents, such as whether they are aggressive and adventurous or stable and conservative, we can anticipate what actions they will take when facing conflicts of interest or difficulties, and thus make preparations in advance. The marshal's ambition is an important clue in the story. After his successful expedition, his power increased greatly, which aroused the concerns of the imperial court. And in the subsequent history, he indeed rebelled as expected. This shows that if the desire for power is not controlled, it will pose a threat to the political order. The marshal's behavior implies the possible consequences of personal ambition expansion, such as challenging centralization of power and causing instability in the political situation. The emperor did not listen to the prime minister's advice and did not restrict the marshal's power and action range. This led to the marshal's power becoming even stronger and uncontrollable after the expedition. This reflects the harm of not paying attention to other people's reasonable suggestions, especially when it comes to power balance and major decisions. Just as in enterprise management, if the leader does not listen to the advice of experienced employees about market risks or internal management hidden dangers, it may lead to a crisis for the enterprise. For example, some enterprises during the expansion process did not listen to the cautious suggestions of financial personnel or market research personnel, blindly expanded their scale, and finally had their capital chains broken or their market shares shrunk. In the era of the state of Lu, more than 100 common people complained that the king had seized their property. The prime minister arrested 20 leaders and flogged each of them 20 times. He also beat each of the rest 20 times. Angrily, he said, "Isn't the king your sovereign? How dare you speak ill of him?" When the king heard of this incident, he was greatly ashamed. He took out the money stored in the palace and asked the prime minister to compensate the common people. The prime minister replied, "My lord, you must compensate them in person. Otherwise, in people's eyes, it is the king who does evil things while the prime minister does good deeds." When handling this matter, the prime minister not only punished the common people, but more importantly, made the king realize his mistake in this way. When the king was about to distribute money and asked the prime minister to repay on his behalf, the prime minister refused again. He proposed that the king should repay in person. Otherwise, it would be that the king does evil while the prime minister does good. This approach not only gave the king an opportunity to correct his mistake, but also cleverly guided the king to take responsibility in person, avoiding overstepping his authority. It also made the king truly realize his mistake and correct it in this process. This inspires us that in work and life, when facing the mistakes of superiors, we can guide them to recognize and correct their mistakes in an appropriate way instead of blindly catering to or criticizing them. The emperor asked everyone, "I heard that there will be an army suddenly entering the palace within 5 days. What should we do?" People didn't know how to answer. The prime minister said, "This must be a plot by someone who wants your majesty to replace the crown prince. If your majesty lets the crown prince start to handle state affairs, then the status of the crown prince will be determined, the plot of those people will be foiled, and the rumors will naturally disappear. The emperor did as he said, and the rumors were indeed quelled. The prime minister demonstrated acute insight and was able to quickly judge that the so-called rumor of the army entering the palace might be a plot against the status of the crown prince. He understood that in the court political environment, any change in the position of the crown prince would often trigger a series of power struggles. Such a rumor was most likely deliberately spread by someone with ulterior motives, attempting to disrupt the court situation and achieve the goal of replacing the crown prince. The strategy proposed by the prime minister of letting the crown prince handle state affairs was very ingenious. This could not only clarify the status of the crown prince but also fundamentally eliminate the source of the rumors. By endowing the crown prince with actual administrative power, the position of the crown prince became more stable in the eyes of everyone, making those who attempted to create chaos helpless. This strategy was based on a profound understanding of the court power structure and the will of the people, and it was a proactive way to deal with potential political crises. When facing the thorny issue of rumors, the emperor was able to listen to the advice of the prime minister, which reflected his wisdom as a ruler in accepting advice. He did not blindly fall into panic or believe the rumors and make wrong decisions. Instead, he chose to believe the judgment and strategy of the prime minister. This respect and trust for the opinions of subordinates helped him make the right choices in complex court affairs and avoid being exploited by those with ulterior motives. After listening to the advice of the prime minister, the emperor was able to act decisively according to what he said, which showed his decision-making courage in a critical moment. In court politics, hesitation often leads to more chaotic situations, while the emperor's decisive action effectively stabilized the situation and quelled the rumors, reflecting his wisdom in maintaining court order and stable rule. When facing the crisis, the emperor and the prime minister in the story were not deceived by the appearance of the rumors. Instead, they grasped the key issue that the instability of the crown prince's position might trigger power struggles. By determining the core measure of clarifying the status of the crown prince, they solved the problem of the rumors from the root, showing a kind of wisdom of hitting the nail on the head in complex crises. This story also reflects the wisdom of stabilizing people's hearts in the court and political environment. The reason why rumors can have an impact is that people's hearts are unstable. By clarifying the status of the crown prince and letting the court officials and the people see the attitude and decision-making direction of the emperor, the emotions of the officials and the people were stabilized, thus effectively quelling the rumors. This emphasis and grasp of the factor of people's hearts is one of the important wisdoms in dealing with political crises.
More detail, more story, follow me, please.